I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The New York Giants found their quarterback, at least for 2025. That was a couple days ago when they signed Jameis Winston. Now they did it again. Russell Wilson coming in on a real money deal that I will let Patricia Traina tell you all about from Locked On Giants. Patricia, why did they sign two veteran quarterbacks here? Not to, franchise quarterback money, but they allocated real resources to a pair of quarterbacks here.
Well, I think it's kind of obvious, Peter. They're lukewarm on this year's quarterback class.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Cam Ward is apparently the top quarterback in a lot of teams' mind. He's not getting to the Giants at number 3. And then, the options that follow him, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, they may not be as appealing to the Giants at number 3. Maybe they don't feel that they have a grade that high on those guys. So they're like, okay, you know what? Let's bring the veterans in. We've got a tough slate of opponents that we're facing. Let's let the veterans do the heavy work. And maybe we draft our franchise quarterback a little later in the draft, whether it be later in the first round, whether it be on day 2 or even day 3.
Part of this, I think we have to surmise just from the circumstances, is the pressure that this team feels to win right now. That Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen don't maybe feel like they have the runway, and maybe that the Maras are going, hey, guess what we don't want to do? Stink again this year. How good do you think this makes the Giants? How much do you think this helps, given where their quarterback situation was, especially at the end of last year?
I think that's still to be determined. I mean, I'm not really sure if Russell Wilson is the best fit for the offense that they run. I think they're going to have to tweak it a little bit to, suit what he does well and minimize what he doesn't do well. But look, Russell Wilson has been to a Super Bowl, has won a Super Bowl. Jameis Winston hasn't been to a Super Bowl, but he's a former number 1 overall pick. So it was kind of obvious if you kind of followed the way the Giants were going this offseason as far as what they were looking for in a quarterback. They were going for guys primarily with Super Bowl experience, including your buddy, Aaron Rodgers, who thankfully isn't coming here. So they were looking for, the experience, the guys who had been to the top of the mountain and had success. So
there is plenty of incentives in this deal for Russell Wilson, $10.5 million guaranteed. They also, I mentioned the Jameis Winston part of this. Okay, you can be lukewarm on this quarterback class. You don't have to sign 2 guys. Are they also just kind of lukewarm on both of these quarterbacks?
I don't think so. I think it's a matter of who's going to be the veteran mentor. You're talking 2 very different personalities, as I understand it. Jameis Winston is more extroverted.
Yeah.
The feeling is that he might be a little bit better of a mentor because, he's so outgoing. And plus also he's kind of, like I said, he was an overall number 1 pick whose career kind of fell off. So maybe he gets a young kid and says, hey, these are the mistakes I made. Don't make these mistakes. Russell Wilson, I'm not saying he's not going to be willing to mentor a young quarterback, but he's a little bit more introverted. So I think the 2 personalities kind of balance each other out.
It ends up being essentially Russell Wilson is here to be the starter and win games. Jameis Winston is really more the backup who is going to mentor whoever you take, whether, you got Tyler Shuck, Jackson Dart, all those guys that you could take maybe day 2, early day 3 developmental players. Is this it then for quarterbacks? Is this it for the Giants in the offseason? What's next for them as we look toward the number 3 overall pick? Because I'm really just trying to see how you handicap what you think this means for who they're going to take at number 3.
Well, I've been saying all along, Peter, that if Abdul Carter's medicals check out, he will most likely be the guy they look at. I would be shocked if he's not the one. They're trying to put an emphasis on beefing up the trenches. And I think an addition of a healthy Abdul Carter would go a long way to helping that. If Carter is, his medicals don't check out, maybe you look at a Travis Hunter. I can also see a scenario, albeit I don't think they really want to do this, but I could see them maybe wanting to trade down a little bit with maybe somebody who might want Shedeur Sanders at number 3, pick up extra draft assets because, look, The Giants have signed what now, 13, 14 free agents. They're not getting any comp picks next year. So if you could pick up some additional draft assets by trading down a little bit, getting an extra number 1 next year, if you don't like the quarterbacks this year and the guy that you might maybe take on day 2, day 3 doesn't work out, now you've got the assets to move up next year in a class that's going to be a little bit deeper in terms of quarterback talent.
Stay up to date all year on the New York Giants by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Giants on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. The Bucks are losing Damian Lillard to blood clots for an undisclosed amount of time. Before we get to that, the NBA salary cap is headed, you guessed it, up. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. You can also look at some futures, like for Major League Baseball. How about that? The most popular future bet in all of Major League Baseball. The Cincinnati Reds to hit their over on the win total. FanDuel has the Reds over under 79.5. My producer would like to mention that he has smashed this over, FYI. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. The NBA has informed its team the salary cap is going up by 10% for the 2025-2026 season, according to reports. The growth in the cap the next season is the maximum allowed and aligns with projections the NBA sent teams last June. In a memo sent to the teams, the league said the salary cap is projected to be $154.6 million. The luxury tax projected at $187.9 million. Even with the growth, only the Brooklyn Nets projected to have more than $50 million in cap space. On the court, the Mavs travel to Madison Square Garden to face the Knicks.
I mean, I guess first we could shout out the two records or, noteworthy things in this game. So Karl Anthony Towns with 26 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists, gets a triple-double. Josh Hart also 16 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. The 12 and 11 is kind of crazy that they both got that for their triple-doubles. And also both with sixes on the end of their point totals. Weird. But first pair of Knicks teammates in history to both get triple-doubles in the same game. So that was cool. And then Josh Hart sets the triple-double record, takes that from Clyde for a single season. He's also, I don't know exactly how close he is to the career one, but he's definitely threatening to get there sooner than later for Knicks career triple-doubles. So props to Josh Hart for that.
Can I just say, Alex, did you love that Clyde on the broadcast slipped in? Only took 50 years to beat it. Like which I don't think was him being salty because he loves Josh Hart, but I just thought that was funny. Like some of the competitiveness is still in there.
The Cavs headed west to take on Portland.
Cleveland Cavaliers won their second game in a row on Tuesday night as they beat the Portland Trailblazers 122-111. This was, I thought, a really nice win for the Cavs. I thought there were positive things to talk about on both ends of the floor. And I do think that as we get into this, I think it's important that they won this game. And the game against Utah on Sunday, which obviously snapped a season worst 4-game losing streak, was a game that the Cavs, I think, were always going to win. Like, they could have overslept the opening tip-off and still found a way to win that game because Utah just has no interest in playing NBA basketball right now. And the Cavs took control of that game and won. But, like, it wasn't some, oh, that was an impressive win or they really showed us something. Yes, there were reasons to be encouraged. I think that was a game that certainly fixed the vibes a little bit. And you saw the Cavs take command of a game that they kind of had not been able to do lately.
And we have a bold prediction for the NL Central. Shohei Ohtani will have competition for the MVP this year there.
If Shohei Ohtani doesn't light up the world pitching this year, Elly De La Cruz will win the MVP. That's where I'm at. He'll be the MVP of the National League unless Shohei Ohtani has some kind of lights out pitching season as well as hitting season. But I think Ellie takes the MVP.
We didn't know this, but we both kind of knew something was coming. Sometimes you'll get some privileged information. And we were kind of tiptoeing it around the show that you can still hear that we recorded in the afternoon yesterday. But we'll wait to see what's going on with Dame. I was of the understanding he was going to miss the rest of the regular season based on some of the things that I had heard. And then this one comes out. And look, I mean, first and foremost, who cares about basketball when it's something as severe as blood clots that Damian Lillard is dealing with? So we obviously wish him well and hope that his health is no issues go forward. We've seen this end the career of Chris Bosh, other players currently dealing with it. Victor Wembanyama is out for the rest of the year. Asar Thompson
had it for a while.
Brandon Ingram had it. Asar Thompson, his season came to an end around January last year with this. So it's a very serious ailment. So that's first and foremost out there for Damian Lillard, and the way the Bucks handled it too. Like, we care about Dame's health. So out indefinitely, we're not even putting a timeline of we hope he can come back. And I know there's been some other reporting that's come out of, hey, there's optimism that he's going to be able to return for the playoffs. Neither of us are doctors, Camille. I just know when I hear things like blood clots and blood thinners, there are ones that are more severe than others. It's still pretty severe. And for me, it's hard to imagine a player returning to the court within a month and a half, months of this issue.
Yeah, it's tough because when you're on blood thinners, any type of like hard impact you receive can cause internal bleeding. Like, it's just a very dangerous game that you don't really want to play around with. So I felt some like hope seeing the reports of saying, hey, there's optimism around the fact that this isn't really serious. They caught it early. Dame should be fine. And optimism around the fact that he might be able to return this season. But to your point with that, I'm not getting my hopes up around Damian Lillard returning. If he does, that's great. But first and foremost, like, he has to be healthy. He has kids. He has a family. Like, that takes the utmost importance. And the timing of it is just unfortunate. It feels like the Bucks sold their basketball soul or something in 21 to get that title, because ever since then, it's been some type of injury heading into the playoffs or during the playoffs that has affected the Bucks run. I think about after the title in 22 with Chris Middleton and the MCL sprain after slipping on the wet spot against the Bulls. And the Bucks were able to take the Celtics to 7 in the second round, but just didn't have enough there. The following year, Giannis injures his back against the Heat. We know how that series went with Jimmy Butler becoming Michael Jordan. And then last year you have Giannis go out 3 games before the playoffs even begin with his calf injury. He misses the whole first round series. Dame gets injured during that series as well as just Chris Middleton. And we got a great farewell song from Chris in the playoffs there with his performances. But the way that this Bucks team is constructed, especially after the trade deadline, with them making moves to try to put pieces around Giannis and Dame to elevate their play, you take Dame out the equation, and it's just kind of like, well, where do the Bucks go now with just Giannis being that sole creator, that sole point of interest for opposing defenses?
That's the big one. Look, in some ways, the fact that they've had to play these last 3 games without Dame and insert Ryan Rollins in the starting lineup and try to figure out how do we make things work here is somewhat helpful, that you at least get a 3-game baseline there. But yeah, now look, we've had so many conversations about the, for lack of a better word, pressure that is on the role players of who is going to be the consistent third scorer. Who's going to step up next to Giannis? Like, who's going to be the role player that has those big moments and hits shots? And again, it doesn't have to be the same player game in, game out. You just need to have that. So does this mean it's Brook Lopez, everybody's favorite, is the second leading scorer on this team? Is it when Bobby Portis comes back, BP is that guy? I don't know, and what does this mean for the starting lineup? I see a lot of Kevin Porter Jr. moves in there now that you have a better idea. This is not day to day with Damian Lillard. You need to assume Damian Lillard is shut down for the rest of the season. And how do we board with these 2 guys, with Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins? So with that, I guess, who do you think starts? Do we continue to see Ryan Rollins in the backcourt, or is this the opportunity for KPJ?
I think it might be a situation where Rollins remains that nominal starter, but the minutes might reflect that Kevin Porter Jr. is getting starter minutes down the
Yeah.
stretch here, or Gary Trent Jr. is getting those starter minutes down the stretch here. But Rollins does provide that defensive edge. And if you're going to lean in on something here for this Milwaukee Bucks team, we know the offense has been the struggle. But if you're now constructing everything around Giannis here, it makes some sense to me to try to lean in on that defense a little bit more, and then let that bench unit really be your guys off the bench who can come in and get some buckets by a dozen. So, and again, I think the minutes overall, like if you look at what Ryan Rollins will end up playing in this situation that I'm proposing, it's probably still like 20 minutes or so, but
Yeah.
Kevin Porter Jr. might see an increase in his minutes as well as Gary Trent Jr. They're going to need them. And I've been saying Bobby Portis is somebody who's very important to this team after the trade deadline with how they're constructed now. And with Dame's injury news, again, even more important, I think Bobby Portis is for this team. They're really going to need that offense that he's able to create for himself, as well as seeing if he can create some for others as well.
Stay up to date all year on the Milwaukee Bucks by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Bucks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Yankees pitching staff will need to get creative. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. You can also look at some futures, like for Major League Baseball. How about that? The most popular future bet in all of Major League Baseball. The Cincinnati Reds to hit their over on the win total. FanDuel has the Reds over under 79.5. My producer would like to mention that he has smashed this over, FYI. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoop action all tournament long. The Yankees look like the easy favorites to win the AL East. Then Garrett Cole had to have Tommy John surgery. Now the Yankees will need to be creative to compete for the title in a crowded division. Our Locked On host in the AL East broke it down.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting because, if you had asked me this earlier in the offseason, I would have said the Yankees still win the division. But I think this Garrett Cole injury situation changes a lot of what we're looking at when it comes to the Yankees right now. And, the fact that they lost Juan Soto in their offense, who was such a big part of that team that went to the World Series last year, that alone already concerned me a little bit about the Yankees, because I was saying, are they going to be able to replace that kind of production in their lineup? But then, this Garrett Cole news happens, and you have to wonder what kind of position that starting rotation is going to be in. So I don't really feel as confident anymore in the Yankees winning the division now. It's just tough. I mean, my gut is telling me maybe Baltimore, but my worry with them is the moves that they made don't really correlate enough to me to compare to what they lost in the offseason. So that's the problem I have with them. The Red Sox, I mean, they made some good moves this offseason to put them back in the discussion with a lot of these other teams, because I remember at this time last year, the discussion was the Red Sox potentially finishing in last place in the division. And I think they did exceed some expectations last year in that regard, added some good pieces, but they also have injuries to start the season. The Rays, I mean, they always find a way. They're not really playing in a real ballpark this year, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But the Tampa Bay Rays, they always find a way to be competitive. The Blue Jays should be competitive in theory because they have the roster to do it, but for some reason they just keep underachieving. Is this Vlad situation going to be something that looms with them? So I think it's kind of a wide open division. I don't really say I can pick a clear cut winner right now.
Yeah, I'd actually sit here and agree with you in a sense that I think the Red Sox actually had one of the better off seasons in all of baseball. When you look at what they did, it was very under the radar, no major signings, but they improved in every place that a team needs to be good to make a run in the season, right? They upgraded the starting pitching staff. Their lineup is more round than it was last year, and their bullpen got improvements too out of it. So I actually think the Red Sox are winning the division this year, and I think they're going to be unbelievably competitive. I think they're going to be that team entering the postseason that no one wants to see, because every element of their team is hard to face. They don't really have much of a weakness on their roster, as opposed to just a lot of good pieces around their entire roster. We are presented by FanDuel, and Boston right now is plus 270 to win the division, same odds as the Orioles. And the Yankees drastically dropped. I'd agree with you. I think the Yankees just have lost too much. And when you have a season that starts off the way that it started off, the Yankees now need major contributions from several players around their roster instead of just those guys being themselves. You need Rodon to be better than he actually is. You need Max Fried to legitimately have a Cy Young quality season this year. Not that those guys aren't capable of doing that, but you're expecting a lot more out of them instead of being what you signed them for. So I think it's Boston. I think Boston's the best team in this division, to be honest with you, and I don't think it's going to come too much of a shock to me if they are the best team in the division.
Yeah, there's definitely a different narrative than there has been in previous seasons. Going into the season, I agree with you guys. I think it was the New York Yankees. You have Garrett Cole, you sign Max Fried, you go out, make a ton of moves. You already have a well-established lineup. But now we're in this notion where you have the Yankees, you have Garrett Cole who's injured, you have Luis Gil who's out, you have Giancarlo Stanton who might miss the start of the season as well. You have a ton of injuries racking up with the New York Yankees. I agree. The Boston Red Sox had a very good offseason. You go and get Garrett Crochet. That's obviously a massive move. Alex Bregman should probably be playing third base. Obviously, that is going to be something that is still unveiled as we progress through spring training. For me, I actually have the Baltimore Orioles. I know last year, as Locked On Blue Jays host, we had the Yankees. We have the Baltimore Orioles. I think that lineup's still going to be very good. Gunnar Henderson, again, injury concerns going into the year, but he should be back relatively early on in the season. I think they have the deepest lineup in this AL East. The pitching is going to be where there's issues there. The starting rotation, when you lose Corbin Burns, it's obviously a massive hit you're going to take. Charlie Morton being their big signing. Is he going to be able to step up? You do have Grayson Rodriguez, who I love, but injury concerns there. Will he be able to stay healthy throughout the entire season? But I do think that lineup is going to be able to carry them over that hump between the Yankees, the Red Sox. I think the Jays can be in there as well. The Rays always discounted, but they're always a tough competition in this division. So for me, I have the Baltimore Orioles, but it's really wide open.
And finally, Paige Beckers is redefining efficiency. The UConn women's star is the only basketball player ever to lead the nation or their league in assist to turnover ratio and have a 50-40-90 season. Ever. Not in the NBA, not in the WNBA, and not in all of college basketball. We've never seen a player do it. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, did the Cubs do enough this offseason to win the NL Central? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.